In the beginning of 2017, I visited the Philippines for the purpose of my own healing. Although I was treating myself for a couple of years with ayahuasca and the results were really fantastic, still, ayahuasca takes time and also it's difficult to organize due to its unclear legal status in Europe. That's why I decided to take a more direct approach. And this traditional surgery from the Philippines seems to be as direct as it can get. Without pain, without any anesthetic, the healer simply would take out of me whatever this disease is, and that's where things would end. I was inspired to take this far-away journey not only by the numerous very positive testimonials, but also by the fact that these surgeons have been studied for decades by scientists mainly from the German-speaking countries, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, but also French and some from South America. And the conclusions of their research were quite positive. But before I start the long saga of my adventure in the Philippines, probably you wonder, is it worth watching? Did she really see the miracles she expected? In terms of absolute and mind-blowing miracles, yes, I saw at least one, and that was the day before I left. But the miracle didn't come from any of the local healers of the Philippines. It was a Swiss healer named Eusevio, whom I met, as some people say, by chance. But what about the healers of the Philippines, of whom I had such high hopes? Did they help me? Yes, most definitely they did. Why did my guardian angels arrange the situation in such a way that most of the healing was done by a Swiss healer in the Philippines? Is a question that should be addressed directly to the angels. I don't know myself. The healers of the Philippines, the locals, they're definitely not charlatans. Couple of them still can do amazing healing. This video report will be very helpful for those who want to know what's the current situation with these traditions of surgeons in the Philippines, and to those who consider visiting themselves for a treatment. I will really try to give them a very good idea of what they should expect and what they should not expect, because most of the other resources that are available on internet, the popular resources, are quite vague on this point, or they are very much outdated because the situation has changed a lot during the last few decades. Because unfortunately this amazing tradition is currently almost dead. There are just a handful of healers left, or even less. Most of them departed due to old age, or nobody knows where are they. The very first healer that I visited was Lawrence Cacteng, who is himself at a very respectable age. He works in a team with Wilson Tempik. Basically, they work simultaneously on you, and I received a very short treatment, much shorter than I expected. I didn't feel any result right away, because also of all the hurry and the conversations, but once I got back to my hotel and had an opportunity to lay down and relax a little bit, I felt profound energetic difference in my body. And then that very same evening, I was lucky to get an appointment and treatment from Arsenia de la Cruz, the daughter of one of the most famous psychic surgeons in the past. Although Arsenia doesn't do this psychic surgery with blood herself, she does very powerful energy work. The results were pretty strong, could be felt right away. Maybe I could compare them to probably being 50 times stronger than the strongest Reiki treatment I have ever experienced. What does it mean exactly that these two healers did a powerful energy work on me? This is not at all abstract. I will tell you what were the results very precisely. Literally by the end of the day, I felt an enormous relief in my heart area. As far as heart diseases, everybody has them in my family from my father's side, and I am after my father, and we all have the same symptoms, heaviness, piercing pain as if we're stabbed with a knife. Fortunately, that's occasional, but what is constant is this heaviness. Practically, I haven't been able to sleep on my left side since decades. But after these two treatments, I felt such a lightness. First, I experimented and lay down on my left side for a long time, and it worked. Much to my surprise, usually I can't even do that. And then I slept on my left side just to believe the unbelievable. And now it has been over a month since these treatments, and the situation remains the same. I wouldn't say my heart area is completely cured, definitely not, but there is a tangible difference and it didn't fade away. The other benefit of these two particular treatments was that before them, for let's say a couple of months after the Italy expedition, I had a very sharp pain in the lower back every morning when I wake up, and I would need, let's say, half an hour to fix myself. And be able to get up and move. That was completely gone after this first day of treatments. No trace of it left even, and it is like this till date. So now some of you are probably thinking, energy work. We want to hear about the miraculous surgeries. Well, so did I. And Lawrence Kakten performed something like that on me. I was not allowed to see it, and my boyfriend was not allowed to film it, but was allowed to see it, and it didn't look anything like what you see now on the old footage. This was filmed in the Philippines a few decades ago by the scientists who were researching the phenomena. It looked like this. Now again, this is not Lawrence Kakten working, this is somebody else, but all the surgeries that I witnessed during my trip were of this type. Everything was happening, at least in the visible spectrum, on the top of the body. One would never see the body really opened like on the old surgeries. You could see really the anatomy inside, or objects coming from inside, like visibly. Another modern development with the situation with the surgeries is that the healers were much more open to filming and showing what are they doing in the past than now. And basically one can't even study the phenomena anymore nowadays because one is often not even allowed to get close, to watch, to film. This is some of the old footage, of course. I really don't know if anybody can still do this old style of surgeries anymore. The people have changed so much and so fast. And as far as the surgeries that you can witness nowadays, those that take place at least visibly on the surface, like this one. Some people believe in the interpretation that it is actually the spirits who are doing the surgery inside, and then they're basically handing out the tumors or whatever the excess material to the healer, who picks it up on the surface and disposes of it. Now, I myself personally have chosen not to believe any interpretations, this or any other, simply because I saw too little. I didn't really have the possibility to study the phenomena, to make any conclusions or believe in interpretations, but I can tell you why the people who do believe in this interpretation do so. The reason for their belief is that these healers are really genuine, or at least many of them. And they have most definitely healed many people from heavy, incurable for modern medicine diseases. This is beyond doubt. I have met such people on various continents. They are not liars, they are not imagining. They really have stories to tell of miraculous cure. And I'm not just believing the stories of others, I felt their immense healing powers myself. But as far as how exactly does the cure take place, for that I think there could be different perspectives. Also, I lived myself over 7 years in Asia, not exactly in the Philippines, but still in Asia, so I know the ways of the local people. The world is a bit different there. So there is no doubt that amazing healing is taking place, but how exactly? Now, unfortunately, sometimes only, people tend to gravitate towards simple explanations just to feel satisfied that they know what is going on. But in reality, the picture might be somewhat more complex than they want it to be, because we are dealing with things happening on astral level, and that is a sphere, a plane of existence that most of us have chosen to remain totally blind about. Now, if you're particularly interested in these curious surgeries, the most interesting part will be at the end with Eusevio, and for now I will continue my narration about the healers I met in the sequence I met them. And although I'm trying to avoid much philosophy, I want to make one point clear. It's about the so-called faith healing. Very often this type of surgeons are called faith healers, and they don't seem to mind it. Even some of them call themselves in this way, and not only in the Philippines, because also psychic surgeries with blood are also performed in Africa and South America as well. I really want to assure you that all the energy work that I'm telling you about is something independent from my imagination. I did not go to the other side of the planet to cure myself with my own beliefs. If it worked that way so easily, I would do it sitting at home. Although the original wisdom on the basis of which this full, modern, very simplified idea of you will get healed if you believe in appeared, unfortunately the original wisdom got simplified to such an extent that it almost lost its meaning. This phenomena, getting healed with your own belief, is actually well studied. It is called the placebo effect. Absolutely, and without doubt, it can cure terrible sicknesses. People dying from uncurable cancers and so on can be cured with the placebo effect. Just one small detail, it works some 10 or 15% of the time. Although the placebo effect rate can vary a lot for various sicknesses, it's very rare that it will reach over 20%, and that will be for relatively mild conditions. Now see for yourself what kind of success rate have the psychic surgeons.
The first big study is made by Dr. Seutemann from Germany. She was studying 1,200 patients for 1 year after they were cured in the Philippines. And they found a percentage of 19% of positive healing.
19 or 90?
90.
90.
There was a trial in Italy, and they were talking, it was tried for trickery. If there are results, so there can be trickery. If it is real what he is doing, but no patient is curing, so then he is a tricker, even if it is real. So the results, so there can be trickery. If it is real what he is doing, but no patient is curing, so then he is a tricker, even if it is real. So the question of reality of this in a scientific sense is not very important. Important for me were the results. So I was collecting results from the whole world, and I didn't find 90%, but it was very nearby, and I was selecting very difficult patients with an infaust prognosis from the official medical staff. So it was normally cancers with metastasis. And so I found that it was a really surprising results of this type of healing.
So in order to understand how such unbelievably good results are achieved, first of all, we should stop approaching the full topic as if it is some sort of circus. We should stop concentrating only on this spectacular part. How can you open somebody's body and see the inside anatomy without anesthetic and all that? Or another approach is to bring your limited understanding and from the very beginning try to prove that it is not possible. Instead of all this childish approach, let's do something wise, which is look at the phenomena in its entirety and, for example, start paying attention to things like how the people who perform these miraculous healings, regardless with or without surgery, how do they explain the phenomena themselves?
It's even not to hear the voice, but it's in the mind. It's in the mind.
So there is some guidance or
Yeah, it's a
guidance.
Father is my guide.
Guide.
Yes.
So he's guiding you in a way.
Spiritual guide. So we could not do anything without the help of the guide. So I do that. I'm only an instrument.
Do you have experiences with talking with spirits, or did your father talk with spirits directly?
Also, and he could see, because Father is a medium, of course, he could see what's wrong with you. And Father could tell the future, but I don't thought I wish to do the healing. Father was a non-believer before. He don't believe in this healing. That's what he does. But our grandparents are doing the healing already. So Father become ill, and then he could not. He told us that he could not go, he could not move, and then he hear a spirit telling him, "If you want to be healed, go to the chapel and have healing, but promise after that you will do the healing." So Father, of course, is interested to become okay. So they brought him to the chapel, and then after the healing, that's what they told us, he just sit down and as if nothing happened to Father. So that's the time Father started doing the healing.
Arsenia is really an amazing healer that I can only highly recommend. She channels strong energy, the energies of her father according to her own words, and in addition she's so simple and honest and open, and For example, Lawrence Kakting, he charges $75 for a relatively very short treatment, while Arsenia did much longer treatment and she didn't even ask for anything. It is all by donation. Then I went for another treatment on the next day, and after that I left Baguio. Actually, now in retrospective, I understand that I should have stayed a couple of more days and taken a few more treatments from her, or maybe even Lawrence Kakting, although I found him to be somewhat too expensive for me. But at that time, I was still fascinated by the idea of finding a healer who will just take out everything from me and cure me in one go. And also, I felt the urgency to simply run away from Baguio. The pollution and the traffic noise were just unbearable. And so next I headed towards the city of Urdaneta to get healing from the famous healer Ester Bravo. Taking images while the healing is going on is not allowed in her church, and that's why I'll be showing you only footage taken from the church outside of service hours, as they call it. The very first treatment that I received from Estrel was really very powerful. Finally, my main issue was addressed in the head. Just in a couple of seconds, she did just an amazing work. When I stood from the surgical table, this is the one that we see right now with the bottles of water on it. Immediately after the treatment, as if all the sickness was sucked out from 1/3 of my head, the right side where she did some work. It has been some 2 months already after this healing, and I feel the results till now. I think they're permanent. Yes, there was some strange feeling couple of days after the treatment. Not bad feeling, just the energies were moving around in that area. But that passed away and the effect remained. I stayed couple of more days in Urdaneta to receive treatments, and I got one every day, once even twice a day. But unfortunately, all the other treatments were shorter, and I did not feel any major improvements after them. Although I was having much more hopes than the very first treatment, and I was praying much more, which seems to be the most essential part of what she's preaching in her church, because she gives short service or a sermon, not sure how to call it exactly, before every healing, maybe half an hour or maximum 1 hour of talk. I also requested an interview with her, and I was told to come the next day 10 o'clock. And we went there and waited almost all day, and nobody came. But after a couple of days, during her talk in the church, she remembered that we were curious and decided to devote her speech in response to our interview request. And so she told us lots of stories from her life, which unfortunately I could not understand fully because of the language barrier and the fact that I was sitting on the back row. But I will tell you the gist of what I remember. Her childhood wasn't particularly easy. She had, I believe, 10 siblings. And during her school and university years, she had to take care of them. She would run back from school and then start cooking for them, then cleaning, and then washing all their clothes by hand, barely any time to sleep, and then she would run back to school again. She wasn't particularly religious or inclined to any spirituality in her younger age, but the story developed with her mother, who refused, I think, for 20 years to take shower or go out of the house, and behaved in somewhat strange manner. And then, together with her father, I believe they undertook some sort of a religious pilgrimage to solve this problem with the mother. And around that time, somehow it became clear that her mother will be cured if Estrelle vows to become a healer and help people, which she did. And as far as the exact events which led to her obtaining these healing powers that she has, was during this journey or pilgrimage, something like this. They were in the mountains and she felt strange streams of air around in the room where she was staying. So she was trying to desperately close windows, doors, or any other source of possible draft or wind, but it never worked. And at the end, a shiny, glowing with light being appeared in front of her. Later on, her father told her that you should not be afraid. This was not some sort of ghost. This was Jesus Christ or the Lord. I'm not sure which of the two she said exactly, but this is how she got her healing powers. Estrelle would often share episodes from her own private life during the short talks that she is giving in the church, and from those it becomes clear that her life is not particularly easy as a healer right now as well. She's a mother of 6. She feels quite overburdened with all the duties and work she has. She is almost exclusively devoted to her church because she has founded her own church. She is not a branch of any other institution, and she is regularly going on missions, during which she establishes and maintains small chapels in the surrounding areas. So a bit of a practical information for those who consider visiting Ester Bravo for their own treatment. She does healings almost every day, sometimes even twice per day. But the only more or less sure timings are Saturday at 10 o'clock and Sunday at 5 p.m. But those are the most crowded days because then some local people come as well. It could be over 100 of them. So it could be quite busy. During weekdays, it is almost exclusively foreigners, and the crowd is much smaller. Sometimes it could be as small as 20 or 30 people. There is no fixed time for the healings during weekdays, and she does them only when she is not on a mission. A mission means she goes to check the situation with some of the smaller chapels through which her church is expanding in the mountainous regions around. And those missions could be inspired by the Holy Spirit, in her own words, on a very short notice, like with a couple of hours advance notice. So beware that you may arrive there and that very same day she may leave for a week-long mission. This is possible. For example, during my own stay, she went twice on a very short missions, twice in a single week. And even when there is a healing, there is nobody to tell you when exactly is it gonna start. It is usually announced a few hours before it starts, and there is no official place where you can ask what is the latest update on it. So be prepared to spend all of your time waiting. Sometimes there could be even 2 healings during a day, and there is no way to even know when is it gonna happen. And when the time is announced, usually they would start at least 1 or 2 hours later than the announced time, but you never know. I heard that 1 or 2 times they even started on time. I find it hard to believe, but I've heard this from actual eyewitnesses. And then once it starts, it is a short speech in the beginning, and then she prays to the Lord out loud. I must say that this is the most profound and moving prayer I have witnessed in my life. With such a feeling, she prays for the well-being and health of other people. I find it really remarkable. And from the way it looks from outside, this is exactly the time when she goes in trance. Her face changes, or at least this is the explanation that you can hear around. And after that, she starts healing each and everybody individually, which by itself takes a couple of long hours. Or when the crowd is bigger, it takes practically all day. So, as I said, it is waiting, waiting, and only waiting. Some people feel serious discomfort because of this. First of all, it's just 10 meters away from the MacArthur Highway, which is one of the busiest streets in all of the Philippines. It's right on it, pollution, noise, everything. Also, the sitting situation is with this small hard church benches. So some people experience discomfort because of this, but this at least you can do something. You can bring your own cushion. Other challenges are sometimes the extreme heat or the very high speed fans which blow right on your face all the time from a couple of sides. This itself makes some people sick. And this is not a particular problem just for this place. You will face it at many locations in the Philippines. Like usually air conditioning and fans would be used to make it a bit cooler and more pleasant. But in the Philippines, I have the feeling that they want to use it like to make, for example, their public buses to take off like rockets propelled by the strong blow of air. But of course, all these are minor and unimportant details. The main thing is what are your chances to get healed and how long is it gonna take? Since my stay was relatively short, just a couple of weeks, I was not able to perform any research and collect data so that I can tell you in terms of percentage what are your chances to get healed. But my overall impression, again unconfirmed by any solid data, is that the chances nowadays are much lower than the 90 or 95% we heard earlier from the French scientist. That data was collected years ago. People have changed a lot since then. The treatments that I received from Ester Bravo were relatively very short, just maybe a minute or two, something like that. And my personal feeling, again, I'm underlying feeling and not fact or data, is that if I would have received at least a couple of relatively long treatments, like some people report that in the past they have been operated like half an hour by her. If I would have received this type of treatments and they were as powerful as the first one I received, I wouldn't be surprised if I would be healthy, completely healthy by now. But it didn't happen, of course. It's nothing that we can blame on her. She's doing her best. I mean, she's a mother of 6. She has barely time for anything, and people are coming in hundreds, if not in thousands. So the healings, the personal healings, are done in public, in the church. So I could see that some people tend to receive still much longer treatments, not half an hour, but let's say 5 minutes. That I would consider a very long treatment compared to others. And some of them were of visibly very poor health. For example, they needed to be carried to the chapel, or they were extremely emaciated. So some cases were like this, others didn't have any visible reasons that I could see. So again, I'm not saying that all treatments are short, just most of them. And it's not only about being long or short. Like my very first treatment was also short, but it was extremely powerful. Why all the others were not? Or I just don't know. It is my own karma. And to be honest, we have basically no clue how is the healing going on there. Apparently some spirits are working through her. What kind of spirits? I never got a chance to talk to her, to ask anything. Some patients reported seeing astral images of saints. Well, I didn't see any of that. Also, the spirits who heal, they have personality. Some of them specialize in different sicknesses. Others feel compelled to help different people more than others for we don't know, whatever their own spirit reasons they have. And as far as the surgeries that Estrel performs, yes, you can see something red, you can see blood from far away, and you can go somewhat near if you have a friend who is being operated. But even when you're near, the situation is like this, that basically you can't see much. So yeah, what's going on with these surgeries? I have no clue because I cannot see. And so it is pretty obvious that Ester Bravo has chosen to do her healings exclusively within the Christian paradigm. It would have been interesting to inquire into the topic, for example, is she able to call the spirits of Christian saints and have meaningful conversations with them? But my general guess from what I heard of her preachings was that the way she gets her wisdom and the way she gets the interpretation of everything that happens around and what she does is by asking the questions in her mind and then opening the Bible and looking at this random place that she has opened for the answers. And then towards the very end of my stay in the Philippines, I decided to go to the town of Cabá and try to meet William Nonog. I didn't know if it would be possible because he himself is recovering from a stroke, and I met some people who went for healing but returned on the way because he wasn't healing anymore. Also, it was never clear is he there at this point or not, but still I decided to give it a try and go there. Although William was in Kaba when I arrived, during the first few days, somehow I couldn't get a treatment from him. But while frantically going around and desperately trying to get such a treatment, I met actually Eusevio. I wasn't even aware in the beginning that he would be the one who would help me most. This is how it happened. In Urdaneta, I shortly met a very friendly lady from Switzerland and we exchanged few sentences. I mentioned that I came and I wanted also to make a documentary about the healers, but I have very little material. People are not willing to give interviews and things like that. And I received a message from her when I was already in Kaba that there is somebody from Switzerland also in Kaba, and he's been with the healers for many years and he's ready for interview. And I thought, why not? Let's do it. During the interview, only I found out that actually he came many years ago to the Philippines together with his wife, and he was very, very sick and got cured, miraculously cured by these psychic surgeons. But now he is coming again and again, not to get healing again, but because he's a healer himself and he kind of recharges his batteries here. He said also that his healing abilities are a gift from healer spirits, and they are not something that he developed himself. So I took this interview from Eusevio. You can see it in German on my YouTube channel in full. And after that, we still continued waiting for William Nonog, who, of course, being Filipino, has a Filipino feeling of punctuality, which means everything is with an approximation of few hours. Now, while we were casually chatting and waiting, I don't know how exactly, because he spoke German, which I understand only half or less, but I heard him already making plans about my own healing, although I didn't mention that I'm looking for anything like that at all, because he said that I have the potential to do lots of good things. He said not so much in the area of healing, but in the field of revealing. But I can't do much of that currently because I have this terrible problem, this sickness caused by some fear, and this is putting lots of limitations on me. Then he asked for my full name so that he can connect with me on astral level, and he said he'll try to do as much as he can remotely. At that time, to be honest, I still didn't give any special attention to this. William Nono came and I said goodbye, thank you, very casually, and I had no clue that our paths would be crossing again. That evening I couldn't get treatment from William Nonok as well, and I simply went home. There was nothing special. I didn't have to wait long before the special started. In the beginning, I didn't even understand what's going on. I woke up at night as if I received a mild electric shock. I couldn't sleep for some time. The strange energies were moving in me like crazy. I had no clue what it is whatsoever. Yes, I felt somewhat better, so then I figured out this must be a healing, and then in the forenoon, the next day, I could identify a few periods when the same thing started and went on for 15 minutes or whatever, and then stopped. So by noon, I was seriously wondering what's going on. Was it any of the Philippine healers? I mean, can they even do such a thing if their healing was much less powerful when I was there in person? Then I contacted Eusevio by phone and asked him, this and this is going on. Do you have anything to do with that? And he told me, yes, I am doing that. I told you I'm gonna heal you. So then I decided, now that's very interesting. Although at that point my general mood towards healers wasn't extremely enthusiastic. I just had much higher expectations from the Philippine healers. And in general, I'm not a person that believes things easily. Not because I don't believe astral things, but I'm quite reserved to people who claim that they are doing astral things, because unfortunately many of them are simply charlatans and exploit the fact that most people are blind to the astral to sell them imaginary astral services or things, which God knows if they work as intended. But despite my general somewhat pessimistic mood towards healing at that point, I decided, well, I don't see who else would be doing this and who could do this even. So since I'm near him, let's go in person and try to see what's the nature of things that are going on. And so we went to his place. And he started treating me, removing the astral blockages. During the first 5 minutes, let's say, of the treatment, I couldn't see anything special. He was just waving his hands above me and doing something which I could not perceive. But after that, I started feeling slight pulling inside my organs, although he was not even touching me. This went on for 5 or 10 more minutes, and then the pulling started becoming considerable. For example, at one point he was pulling something invisible above the area of, let's say, my liver approximately, and the result of that would be as if inside of me there was a rope, and it was pulling me all the way from my left tooth, like a line crossing my full body and ending in my left foot. And again, this wasn't some sort of slight sensation or something that I was imagining because I was expecting something. I'm telling you what I clearly perceive and how it was, and it was very, very strong. And it was only at that point when I suddenly realized what kind of exceptionally good healer I interviewed yesterday without knowing. And it was only at this point that I had no more doubts who was doing the distant healing the night before and during the day. He also knew very, very well what he is doing, and he could see things very clearly. I mean, I'm absolutely a unknown person for him, and he provided absolutely accurate details of my condition and my problem. This is far beyond those general guesses that some New Age people can make about probably anybody. Oh, sometimes you have headache and sometimes your digestion is not so good. Well, that's pretty much true for 99% of the people, so it's hard to go wrong about such things. But Eusevio was not like this. He could clearly and very precisely see what is he doing, and this is a true psychic surgery, what he did on me. I can confirm that with absolute certainty. And one curious detail is that of course his astral surgeries look quite different from the colorful spectacular thing with the Philippine healers, but at least for me, the full thing didn't end up bloodless after all. I did have a very slight internal bleeding after the surgery, which I never had before or afterwards, and it was obviously the result of this very intense experience. And it didn't surprise me at all, given into account how did I feel in general after this astral surgery. Well, I myself underwent a standard small surgery in a normal hospital many years ago when I was a teenager. My appendix was taken out, so I do have at least a basic idea how does it feel to have a surgery done. And I must tell you that I didn't feel in any way different after the astral surgery, especially at one particular spot somewhere in the intestines. That was the spot where I felt strongest pulling during treatment, and in the few days following this treatment I definitely had the feeling that I have a fully three-dimensional wound inside myself. Although the treatment as such was contactless, the changes of the flow of energies in my body uh, changed so dramatically within a short period of time that it's absolutely normal that maybe something was twisted inside me, maybe something healed wrong way from I don't know what, or maybe something was cut away or removed because it was not needed. I don't know what exactly was the change, but it was just this was a true miracle. I don't see how Eusevio is in any way different from the magicians that we read about in the fairy tales, for example. I mean, basically, that's what they do. They wave their hand in the air, they say a few magical words, and then things unexplainable for laymen like us happen. And this is what I witnessed with my own eyes. This was a true miracle. And then on the very last day, when I was departing from the Philippines and when I completely lost even hope for it, I did get a treatment from the famous William Nonog. He did a very short, very short energy work on me. Very short and very powerful, I must say. I'm not surprised that he is such a famous healer. He deserves it. I can most definitely recommend him as a genuine, authentic healer belonging to a family with tradition in healing. But as with all the other healers of the Philippines, can we expect that somebody who is very sick and has been sick maybe for decades would get cured in 2 minutes? That's not very realistic, and I somehow still have the feeling that it is not that the local Philippine healers lack power. I think the treatments that they give nowadays are just way too short. Also, William Nonog, he gave me a full-length interview that you can see on my channel. William Nonog is very different from all the other Philippine healers that I met, simply because he lives mostly in Switzerland. I actually met him on a short break while he was recovering from his stroke in his homeland. And since Nonog lives mostly in Europe, he had the chance to get exposed to other paradigms besides Christianity, because the local healers, I put it in this way, that they have decided to heal within the Christian paradigm. Well, decided, but did they have even any other choice, any other paradigm? The way this modern Christianity is was imposed by the missionaries in those regions is in such a way that it was presented as the only choice towards God, the only way towards God, there is no other God. That's how they put it in front of the simple people, which, by the way, were obliged to listen to them because of the military power. And that's how it is till date. And the Philippines are such a country where the older traditions are almost absolutely erased. At least where I was, I didn't see any hint of them. I didn't see a single element of some sort of tribal or traditional clothing, absolutely westernized. I didn't hear a single tune in the music that they listen. I'm not talking about a traditional piece of music. I didn't hear even anything like a mixture. That's what usually people do in this type of countries. They take the old tunes and sing them on the background of modern beats, some sort of symbiosis. No, absolutely nothing like this. The music of the Philippines, the music that the people listen to, is absolutely 100% westernized, as it is every other aspect of their life. And so, when a local person would get the gift of healing from a vision of some sort of spirit that doesn't particularly identify itself by name and doesn't talk to them but gives them some healing power, they don't have much choice but to describe it with words and ideas from the only way towards spirituality that they know about, and that's Christianity. While William Nonog has been exposed to the paradigm of the New Age ideas, and this is the way he communicates with people, this is the way he presents things, and this makes it much more easier for us to relate to.
But in spiritual healing is same as the body is an illusion.
How did you become a healer?
Okay. Well, it was a long story, no? I was young and I was 10 years old before I started to do healing. And it was my grandfather and my grandmother, and it was me, So it was a we are how do I say um, my grandfather cut his own hand because he doesn't want to do healing. So it's a consciousness, no? So after that, the mother, no, the daughter, which is the mother of my mother, became a healer, and she wants also to give up her life during during the war. That was during the war. My grandmother went to the front line of the Japanese, so they had to shoot her, of course, yeah, before she went to the front line, to firing line. And then after the Japanese left, he just shoot the bullet out. She did not die, And then it was me when I was 10 years old. We used to go together with my grandmother, and then at the time I learned that I was the one who had to finish the consciousness, the unfinished mission of my grandfather or my grandmother, and it was me who will fulfill or finish the mission which is unfinished. So at the time I was young also, I want to do the same. Look here, and I have here, I have also here, I have here also. I want to commit suicide, and I have here big one here in my kidney. Well, this is hurting very well, and because I stabbed myself in my kidney, and then I cut here because if I want to commit suicide, then I finish my life, and then okay. But yes, I did that. I did it, and then it didn't work. And at that time, I lose a lot of blood, of course. Then nothing happened, and the next day I wake up. Then I see the yeah, ashtray and a lot of blood. It's impossible to lose a 2 liters of blood or three. You should die. But me, no, nothing happened. Yeah, and then, but it came that I am a different person afterwards. So the first person is I went to my mother, the mother of my grandmother, who was a healer. Then, then I asked my mother to look at me in the eyes. Then I look at in the eyes, eye to eye. Then I watched her like watching a television. And then from her younger days, nah, this is what happened to you, da 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 da, da blah, 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 blah. And my mother said, "Hey, how do you know it? Yeah, just don't stop looking my eyes, and I will tell you everything." So my mother said, "Yeah, how do you know it?" I said, "I see it in your eyes." And then, well, my mother is not convinced, no? And then, yet it's not convinced until the time my mother said, "Okay, what was the dress of your grandmother?" Because I did not see my grandmother died before, so the dress and everything. So I tell her, bring you dress her with this color, with that, that, that. And then my mother said, oh, it's all true. No? And then my mother said to me, if you will take the responsibility, you will have no peace. Well, I was too young to know what my mother said about peace, and then, I said I take the responsibility until the time I was old enough. Then I understand what my mother say. I used to treat up there about 300 people, and I come down here driving with 90 people from different countries, from Germany, from Switzerland, from France. So let us say 500. Okay, I do that. No? And then my mother said, okay, I cannot stop you. So then I remember what my mother said, that you will have no peace. Well, okay, I accepted it. Then until now I do a spiritual healing for 47 years, no? Which means I became to be a student of myself, and then a teacher of myself, and then became a master of this self, and then I became a master of myself.
During my trip, I also met, maybe I should call them facilitators, people who organize groups of foreigners to visit the healers. Mostly they were visiting Ester Bravo. So while some of them were very open and friendly people, others were showing tendencies of behavior that would make anybody question their integrity and honesty. But let's stick to the bright side, and I want to show you a short interview that I took with a facilitator that was open and nice. She brings people for healing to William Nonog.
I arrived in the Philippines 20 years ago for the first time because the diagnosis of school medicine was cancer, womb cancer. And the decision of my surgeon was to take off my womb and my ovaries and everything. Just take off, as surgeons like. So I said, I just prayed to find a better solution. I was in a house of a friend who knew William for many years, and this friend was always coming to the Philippines and staying here in Caba, at Cabatreyas, maybe in the same room, I'm not sure, like you, in Caba La Union. So, yeah. Actually, 20 years ago, I was in the house of this Swiss guy, and the phone call came from William saying that there is a woman in his house who is in danger with her health and not sure that I can make it. Actually, for sure, I can't make it with school medicine and with the removal because it was already late. Then I just took the first plane and came here, came to Baguio. In 2 weeks, William removed all the tumors of my body. And after this time, I went back to my surgeon, who was complaining that it's too late and where I have been and all this in Germany. Yeah? And I said, first, let's make an ultrasound, because those times, 20 years ago, there were no other devices to check. He made an ultrasound, and he said, there is nothing left. What did you do in 2 weeks? This is unbelievable. And then I said, are you sure you are prepared to see what I did? And he said, of course, I'm a physicist, I'm a surgeon, I have no problem. Okay, and then I showed him on my small Sony Hi8 camera, what I bought just before I came here. I showed him the removal of the tumors, what William did. So that was it, and this was 20 years ago, I still have my womb, I still have my ovaries, I still have everything. And then comes a break of 10 years, even if William told me to be back in 5 years. So you know how it is, you always say later, and all this. So after 10 years, I arrived at the point that I couldn't breathe anymore. I went to a lung specialist in Germany, and he told me there is a tumor in my left lung in the part below, and I have to start immediately with chemotherapy, and then surgery will be done probably and cut a piece of my lung off. And then I said, okay, school medicine is very good for diagnose, but that's it, for me at least. So then I came here immediately to William. It was a very hard flight for me because I still had breathing problems and they didn't want to allow me on the plane with oxygen, so it was, usual things, bureaucracy. And then I came from Baguio. William brought me immediately down here to Caba in his house, and I stayed here for 2 months. And in 2 months, of course, I was completely healed, even earlier, but I chose just to stay here for 2 months. And of course, he healed me. He healed me I think in the first week I was breathing, or the first days actually, I was breathing better and I get my energy back and everything. And then I made a kind of, after this experience, I went back to Germany. The doctor said there is nothing left here to see from what was. And you see, it was good that you choose to make the chemotherapy. I didn't take any pill. I didn't take anything of what he said. But I let him believe. Because sometimes, And then I made the kind of commitment with God, saying that I'm not making advertising, but everybody who wants to get to William and is ready to get healed, I will help them to get here, to find a good lodging, to, these things. I am also already 63, so I am in an in-between period. I don't have my pension yet, and so I just need to cover my expenses, So, and that is what I am doing, let's say, for the last 10 years. Every time somebody is contacting me or asking me to bring them here, I am happy to help them.
Have you met any other healers, so-called psychic surgeons? Do you have any experiences with them? What do you know about other healers?
Yeah, I met some healers, not much here, but I can recommend in Urdaneta, Ester Bravo. She's very good. She has a totally different way of healing than William. She is also a psychic surgeon, but different, fully different. So you need to wait there for a long time, for hours and hours. It's hot. So sometimes for people who has already a disease, it can be a little bit challenging. But it is a fantastic experience. I'm very grateful to Esther, and I love her so much. She is making a kind of psychic surgery with much less blood than William, so you can't see so much blood. And yes, she's really very good. What is important, if you go to a healer like William or like Esther, that you believe in healing, that you are absolutely convinced the healing will work and is working already. Because about myself, before I go to a healer, I feel the energy already. I feel the healing already. Because the healing, as William is saying, is coming through the spirit. So it is out of time and space. And we are not used to think with our mind in this dimension out of time and space. So, mainly don't be shocked if you get for the first time to one of these healers. Don't get shocked. You will see blood, but you will feel no pain at all. And just give yourself to the healing and allow William to heal through the spirit, the physical.
Are the surgeries that you see nowadays, for example, this year, last year, somewhat different from the ones that you saw 10 years ago? Or is it absolutely the same?
So in case of Ester Bravo, I don't see any changes. It's quite the same way of healing. About William, I can say he changed a lot 20 years ago. He was also very young, so the healing was different. Then when I came after 10 years, William was healing very, very fast. So this was a little bit strange for me the first days, but then I understood that it's okay. So he was able to, even 20 years ago, he was able to heal 100 people in 5-6 hours. But when I came back after 10 years, he was healing even 200, up to close to 300 people in one day. And I saw him, I was just worrying, you know. I was worrying and I said, how long he can do this? Of course, all of us were worrying last year, end of March, when he had his surgery in Basel, in Switzerland. But what I can say now, the healings of William are different. He is not in a hurry so much like before, and I enjoy now most of the last 20 years.
When it comes to psychic surgery, one would often hear phrases like, those who believe in it will get healed, and those who don't believe, they can't get healed. The other variation is that if you believe in God, that He will heal you, He will, and if you don't believe in that, you won't get healed. Yes, surely these are timeless, inspirational phrases, but for those who are seriously ill and really need help, need it urgently, this can be of sometimes very little practical application. Now let's see the practical application of these timeless, wise phrases. First of all, if you believe that God will cure you, He will. So if it was really that easy and simple, the religious people, and especially those who have very strong faith, they should be considerably healthier than the rest of the population of the planet, or why not even completely healthy? Have you observed anything like this? I personally haven't even heard about anything like that. Not at all religious people who have lots of faith and pray and all that, they get as much sick as every atheist actually. So why is that? Are the religions not telling us the truth? Actually, they are telling us the truth, but the problem is that when you take one single simple sentence and you isolate it from the full teachings, or you lose the full teachings in the course of centuries, and at the end you get only recent interpretations, you just lose the full story, and one isolated sentence unfortunately turns unpractical, although it is true in itself. Yes, having beautiful thoughts, always comprehending scenes of happiness, that will eventually result in you having a completely healthy body and being absolutely happy, but this is almost unpractical to be achieved with the tools of the most popular religions nowadays, because the rest of the teachings have been lost. And even basic stuff is completely lost, like having good thoughts, godly thoughts. But what is the definition of good and evil? That is relative. Where do we get these definitions from? From our parents, who in their turn don't get these definitions from some sort of old religious books. Anyway, we don't have any such. We have some very recently written Bible. So the parents get these definitions from the society, from the people around, and eventually it boils down to the mass media, which in modern times is just yet another division of the army of the devil. It is same as if you wanna fly a rocket and you find in some manual the essential thing, how you start it. You press the start button. But then if you miss essential details like first you have to acquire an actual rocket and you better know how to drive it and where you're going and what are you doing. If you are just enthusiastic about this one single point, press the start button and it will fly, and you try it with your elevator of your building, it may not give the desired results because you have missed the essential details around it. So sometimes doing only the essentials does not deliver the desired result at all. So pray to God and you will be healthy. Is this true? Absolutely. In the same way as it is true, the statement press a button and you will fly. Believing that God will cure you if you pray to Him can deliver effects and does deliver effects in some 10 or 20% of the cases, even when the sickness is very severe. Miracles do happen, but you don't need to go to any surgeons. You can just select some inexpensive and easy method at home and believe in that, or just don't do any method, just pray very intensely. And now the other formulation of the wise phrase: if you believe that a certain healing modality helps you, it will, and if you don't believe in it, it will not help you. The meaning is the same as with the religious formulation. It is just put into New Age language, but its validity remains the same. It helps in some, let's be enthusiastic, 20% of the cases. And this is something everybody should be trying at home before seeking any help from a doctor or healer. Select any natural, simple cure, put your belief in it, and try it. Pray hard. Get determined to get well. We should be doing this, definitely. It works in some cases. But the question is, what about if we are already seriously sick? We need urgent help. Maybe we are in pain or other serious problems, and we try this few times and it doesn't work. And then? Well, then maybe the time has arrived for you personally not to be satisfied anymore with superficial and simple answers anymore, and start looking into details and spend some time understanding why this works for some people and doesn't work for others, in which cases it works and in which it doesn't. And then hopefully this will lead you to inquiring into the single most important and most practical and most useful thing in life. How do we influence the events around us with the powers of our thought? Because apparently we can. I mean, people just think that they can get healed of terrible cancers and all kinds of incurable diseases requiring surgery, risky surgeries and all that. You can find thousands of cases like this, if not millions. So apparently some people can do it, but how and why some manage to do it and others don't? And I would encourage you not to look for the answers in the very popular New Agey literature available on this subject, because most of it is highly speculative. It is not practical. It will give you again advices that don't work and boil down to the same thing: believe in something and it will happen. But go straight to the source. Go to the books of Jane Roberts, The Nature of Personal Reality, and Seth Speaks, because I have covered already many times in my videos. These are books that are confirmed. They're really channeled material from a higher source. There is confirmation for it, unlike these self-proclaimed New Age channels who cannot predict even what will happen tomorrow. Free PDF versions of the channeled material from Seth are easily available online. The teachings of Seth are not meant to replace your existing religion with another one. They will simply enrich your understanding in whatever you believe already. And what about me, my personal quest? I was looking for a cure that would be faster than ayahuasca. Did I find it? Actually, if I would have invested the same time and resources in ayahuasca, probably I would have achieved about the same amount of healing. So, in terms of cure, no, it wasn't like this one day and everything is finished, although I did a lot. But with ayahuasca, I would also have done a lot in 1 month if I was doing only that. For me personally, the fastest way to get rid of one's miseries in life remains ayahuasca. And Eusevio, he is the best healer that I have met, at least the best that is still alive. Years ago, I met also amazing Bengali shaman in North India, but he has departed long ago. He was very old. Most likely, there are many other powerful healers as him all over the world, just I don't know about them. But I would advise you to exercise great caution towards anybody who is selling you invisible services. And that's very difficult for blind people like us. For example, I myself, I at least can distinguish a shaman who is doing something from shaman who is doing nothing when they start working on me, because I have developed exceptional sensitivity because of the prolonged use of ayahuasca in the past. Other people are even more sensitive, or they are really psychics or mediums, as they call themselves. I don't consider myself within that category, but they can tell how much the shaman can do only by seeing him. But for majority of the people, it will be impossible to feel in real time what is the shaman doing or not doing, simply because they have not trained themselves. They don't know how to focus, how to access the astral planes of their own being. That is why they will feel the effects of the healing, if there is such a healing, within days or weeks and sometimes even months, when actually the astral changes materialize in the gross body that they can perceive very well. And that takes time, because this gross matter is much more inert. It's not as fluent and fast moving as the astral energies. Those move in seconds, while moving of the actual organs, that may take time, because the gross body only follows the subtle image. And this is what most people report after visiting the Philippines psychic surgeons or other real healers. Usually the changes would come in few days or few weeks and not immediately, as I feel it. And in addition to that, even the gross material bodies that we have can be very much different from one another, depending on our belief system and way of life. This type of things has been showing me ayahuasca, the great spirit of the Amazon, the teacher of the native people. And here are my final thoughts on the psychic surgeons of the Philippines, and not only. First of all, the old footage where really they penetrate in the body, they split the body open, you can see the organs. I really don't believe that can be fake, because, for example, John of God in Brazil, he performs such very similar, not exactly same, but very similar surgeries in the open. He has been well studied by numerous doctors. There is no fakery, so such things are possible, and have been filmed also in Africa and other places in South America. And by the way, those group of scientists, they were repeatedly going to the Philippines. They published a couple of big books and other works. It's all well documented, but they don't go there anymore. The last visit was some years ago, and they said that nowadays the full thing has been diluted with non-genuine stuff to such an extent that they can no longer recommend even this type of treatment to people. And the situation could be much more complex than one would expect. For example, this is one of the reports from a lady who was even studying from them. And this is very disturbing. She's talking about the point that some surgeons, after they lose their powers, they continue to perform fake surgeries for commercial purpose only. Of course, not every claim made on YouTube should be taken for the pure truth just because it is published by somebody, but unfortunately I heard the very same reports from also people who have who lived there a long time, like 20 years. People who knew and still know many or all of the psychic surgeons personally. Probably the current situation is one of a mixture, genuine healing mixed with some real surgeries and some fake surgeries, and nobody can tell you who is doing what exactly. Even Arsenia de la Cruz, the daughter of the very founder of the organization of these psychic healers, these surgeons, even she doesn't know anymore who is doing what exactly.
They could not do what my father have done, is doing, so they do something, because as I told you, foreign people wants to see something.
Why nowadays there are no such healers anymore?
Because
Time has changed or what?
some really too much commercialized. So.
But his blood operations are real?
Yes. It's so difficult to see if it's true or not, because he asked me to go near and asked me, Kumari is like a friend or closer friendship like that, and will you see what can you see, what can you tell, if I could see something not real or what. So I told him, of course, it's like real, and you could not distinguish so well. If I will see really, just for example, if you go, I will be with you. I would like to really see her doing the bloody, but some didn't like me to go near.
And why is this precious knowledge being lost just like that? The reason is that our civilization is digging very fast its own grave, where we can bury ourselves in ignorance till the point we can't breathe anymore. Very few people are aware that most of the humans are basically sleepwalking. They don't even understand how their own thoughts have been replaced by the streaming information coming from their devices. We have been tricked into voluntarily accepting existence that is controlled centrally. For example, all the food supply of most of the residents of the planet, and the monetary system, which also controls completely the lives of more than 99% of the people on Earth. All these things are centrally orchestrated by something or somebody that we have no information about, and we have accepted collectively this type of existence. And this central something doesn't seem to want the people on Earth to be healthy. That is why, under the banner of so-called scientific, modern, humane medicine, all kind of ineffective treatments have replaced much more effective, older traditional treatments. And the hypnotized masses voluntarily get subjected to such pseudo-treatments of the modern so-called medicine absolutely voluntarily. Just because the central hypnotic station delivered to you by the medium of the TV every day implies and makes all kinds of news that make you think that the medicine enforced on you by your government is trying very hard to make all these discoveries, to make your healthcare system better. What? Are they trying hard? Then what about John of God? They should be lined up by thousands over there asking him and begging him how he is doing all these surgeries that you do now on people without anesthetic, curing them like this. Is anybody inquiring? After he has been studied and proven to be a genuine healer by mainstream scientists? No, there is no question of learning from him or trying to implement his methods. And not only that, he has been legally advised not to talk too much about details of how is everything happening actually, because that would be better for him if he doesn't talk too much. And the same was the situation with the miraculous Philippine surgeons. When they were available and there was somebody to ask, there was almost no interest, just few handfuls of scientists, and they published few books, but that was all. And a few general remarks about the Philippines, especially for those who consider visiting. I've been pretty much all over the world, and by far, I must say, the Philippines are the least enjoyable place I've ever been to. Lack of interest towards fresh fruits and vegetables was the worst for me, together with the fact that I had to witness all the time cruelty towards animals. I don't mean the fish they are cutting, I mean alive animals. Although hundreds of fresh green coconuts were hanging literally above our heads, there was no way to acquire them. At some places it was very difficult, at others like Kaba it was impossible. They were simply not sold. The local people had no interest in such things, just everything meat 3 times a day, early in the morning, in the dark. The barbecues are set for pigs with sugar. That's like this standard breakfast. The restaurants barely serve any vegetarian meals, and even if something is made out of vegetables, it's surely taken out of the can. Even if they have the same fresh thing growing in their region, it will be canned. They have huge supermarkets, at least in the cities. You can walk for miles, and it is all these brands of instant noodles from China, or all kinds of junk food snacks. The fruits are rarely to be found. That's in the big cities. In the villages it's almost impossible, but they are usually uneatable because they are already rotten. Besides, they're extremely expensive. They are already rotten or bruised while they were picked up, and picked up absolutely unripe, so in most cases you can't even eat them. And the variety of the fruits would be much less than, let's say, in the frozen parts of Europe's what you can find in those supermarkets. Simply, people are not interested in these things. They like fruity flavors, but that's about the sugar-loaded drinks that you can easily get everywhere. The local Filipinos have minimal interest about any psychic surgeons or any type of alternative healing. To be honest, they don't even know about these things at all. They have never heard of them. Even fruits like the guanabana that grows locally, if they get cancer, they would go to the chemical treatment. They don't even know that there have been studies that guanabana is a powerful medicine against cancer. People from other countries want to get it, but they can't because it has to be fresh. But where it grows, people don't even know how it can help them. These two little souls with a bit of fur on the top were born by the sidewalk as we passed by. It was just on the road, by the side of the road where we stayed, so we had to pass by all the time. So this footage was from the first day when they were born. After that, they were simply left without food by the side of this very same walk, and this is where they died out of hunger and thirst after 2 days. I begged the owners of the mother a few times to do something about it, but for them it was just they didn't understand my weird fascination with some strange animals that they don't need. They never understood why am I suggesting that they should be doing something anyway. Their pitiful cries didn't have any effect on them, and at the end, before they died, when they were half dead, they were just tossing them around and laughing. That's how animals are treated in the Philippines. This is not an isolated case. We were in the countryside, we were traveling. At every step we could see animals bound on very short ropes under the intense heat without any water all day, and needless to say they were severely underfed and often not very healthy. And I'm not telling you how these two little cute souls were left to die over there with the intention to blame or judge anybody. I'm well aware that when I look at the others, I see myself, because it is possible that one day I myself get born in the Philippines, and then I will be acquiring the standard belief of what is a reality from the parents that would be available at that place. And I could be having the same definition of compassion as the owners of the goats, because that's what you get by default when you get born in this type of regions. It is not uncommon that people will remember their past life under hypnosis, and from those cases we can see how the souls don't get born in better and better situations, at least according to our standards, with each and every birth as they learn more and more lessons. No, souls that have been what we would classify as highly evolved spiritual in the past now have decided to take birth as pretty much ordinary people. So it seems to be quite a complex issue. Why would souls decide to take births in particular, maybe even problematic situations? But definitely my trip to the Philippines inspired me to learn my lessons faster, so that I would not need to take difficult births, or at least not that many. Also, if you plan a trip, be aware that your mobility will be very limited unless you love spending hours in traffic jams with unbelievable pollution around. Even a short distance like 100 kilometers can easily take you 3 or 4 or even more hours, because it's the infrastructure even outside the towns doesn't permit driving faster. So if you have any thoughts to share regarding my videos, you're most welcome to the newly created forum. And in addition to that, I post lots of really interesting stuff that I don't have time to include in videos on Twitter or Facebook. Links in the description. my website.